if I might, I've got another meeting to go to at 7.
Okay,
But I'd like to say something, if I might.
sure.
About, oh, geez, 10 or 11 years ago or so, the Traffic Advisory Committee actually, the bylaws that were set up at that time had a city commission member sitting on it. And I was that city commission member. Sitting on that Traffic Advisory Committee at that time was Betty. The decision was it was not a good idea, and I agree with it, that the city commission members should not sit on the advisory boards. And so that was removed, but when I went on to commission some 7 years ago, I guess it was, well, 10 years ago, I forget, but I reapplied as this regular guy to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and Betty was on that committee. And I come here now, and Betty's on this committee.
I'm leaving.
She's been a great person to work with, and I've had the opportunity of doing so on the Traffic Advisory Committee. I understand that she is not going on to another term. And I just wanted to say I had the pleasure of working with her. I think she was very committed and has continued to be committed to her role here and has contributed a great deal. And I just wanted to thank you for your service, Betty.
Thank you.
And incidentally, there's one person that didn't make it for an interview for some reason. He would be going at the next meeting that I'd be going to. If he's not there, I'm going to assume something happened. But I was going to say, I see people coming into this meeting now, and there are other positions on the TAC, are there not? Other than
We're
these
trying
three?
to fill 2 positions.
2 appointments, and
Two,
then
I
at
think
the beginning of the year, there'll be 3 openings.
That's right. And so, Mike, I see you're here. So, you might keep that in mind. Thank you, and I'll be looking forward to your recommendation. Were these 3 for the 2 seats that are open? Is that, I mean, the 2 seats that are already existing?
Well, yes, you know, and the way it'll end up working is that, you know, two will be recommended for immediate appointment, and the third one, you know, will most likely.
Right, but we still have some other seats that we have more.
We have 9. We have 7 members now. We've got 9, you know, that we can fill.
Mhm.
Yes.
And of course, with Betty leaving, that leaves 3 vacancies. And I think the others that are coming up at the end of this year have reapplied. And that was one question that you may know, that they can continue to serve.
No, they cannot. They have to go through an interview process. That's my policy.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're advertised, and if nobody else comes for the applications, that's one thing. But if you have other people that want to apply, you have to go the same process.
Okay.
You don't. Nobody gets automatically reappointed.
Okay.
At least not under me. And that's been the policy since I started.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we've thought that far ahead, Doug. Just
Okay,
because
that's fine.
right now we've got we had 3 applicants, and we knew we had 3 positions that
Yeah.
were going to vacate. And then,
Right, and that's fine.
it would continue to advertise. Well, actually, to those, I think the
Well,
advertising's done for that.
We'll start the re-ad because it's true. We had the advertisements for the new or renewed positions, all right. But a lot of the committees we still don't have enough applicants, and so we'll open it up again at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And just to be clear, that the 2 vacant positions, one of them is
As for county.
no, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
One of them is an at-large member, and the other one is a member of a neighborhood association.
Mhm.
So whomever is appointed needs to be an active member of a neighborhood association.
And these are for 2 available seats now.
right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have some goodies from Wright Berries in honor of Betty's. So after the meeting tonight, we can have a little party. You want that?
Get out of that other meeting. I don't think so.
But you're free to doggy bag if you'd like to.
Please, Doug.
I think it would be presumptive of me to take the.
No,
first
you,
one.
no, you may have.
Well, thank you,
Take
Betty.
one, Doug. Yes. Twist your hand.
Anybody?
Yeah, we-
Okay, just,
It'd be
you
okay
gotta
to
get
pass
it.
them out.
You want to eat now, or you want to eat later?
Uh-oh.
We can nibble while we
Nib-
eat.
want to nibble now?
Probably,
All
yeah.
right.
Oh,
But we can just pass
I
them.
guess that's.
Not for staff.
I'm trying not to.
Let me do this one here. And we don't have to worry about that.
Tell you what, we'll go ahead and pass these around so people can nibble while they.
Dang, they shrunk them.
While they
Sorry, I didn't.
okay. While those are being passed around, we want. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so moved to approve the
I
minutes.
second it.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. So motion carries. Okay.
Have to do call to order.
I already did.
Yeah, you already did. I didn't say aye yet. Did just before the mayor spoke. Oh, no. He didn't call my name
Call
yet.
roll.
Oh, I'm sorry. Call roll. Yes.
No.
Yes. We missed the roll call. So thank you.
I thought maybe I was
What do we
sleeping.
got?
Yes.
They just happened to. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my word.
They kind of. Kathy was so happy to be coming to the meeting, she was dancing.
I think I was carrying too much back in.
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Fellmetzger.
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. LaSalle.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Shafsma.
Here.
All right.
So we're being televised to feed our face.
There you go.
Oh, that's
Well,
not
there are
good.
perks to this job. I'll just have you know.
Before they all start calling over. First time in 9 years.
Okay. Actually, we'll go ahead and just move past the chair report. I was going to honor Betty and her service, and we do thank you. It's 14 years of service here on the
Going on.
Transportation Advisory Committee.
We used to
And
meet
so,
in the trailer at City Hall.
And so she has set the bar high for all the rest of us in terms of our service. So thank you, Betty,
You're welcome.
and don't be a stranger.
Okay.
So, okay, agenda analysis. Anything that needs to be added or subtracted from the agenda?
I would like to add
I'm sorry,
something.
there's one thing that I wanted to go through, which was just a brief update on, I don't have anything to show or share. It's the city's staff, myself, are working pretty diligently to update the regional transportation plan, which is Metro's efforts. So I need to plug that in and give a plug for that just as a public information.
Okay. Well, tonight, before we get into our business discussion items, we have a public comment, and Michael, you are on deck, sir. Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
First TAC meeting.
Oh, excellent. Once you've been to TAC, you never go back. So,
Did you get a
I wanted to
cupcake?
add to
Did you get an
Darn
application?
fine
That's all right.
cupcake. Right off of Main Street,
Yeah.
Oregon City. Well, I'm Mike Berman. I live in Oregon City. I grew up here, and I moved away, and I came back 3 years ago. And Oregon City, Class of '83. I live in Kenema. I'm vice chair of the CIC, and I have a small business on Main Street at the corner of 99 and Main Street. And the reason I'm here, and I'm going to keep it under 3 minutes, is that we have a huge speed problem on Main Street. There's no traffic calming devices. There's, and I've brought this up at various meetings, but it was always at the CIC, and this is more of an appropriate place to bring it up.
Mike, you mean on Main Street or on 99E?
Both. And what we have on 99E, we have Dead Man's Curve going through the tunnel. If you're traveling south, if you're traveling north, or I guess probably east, but if you're heading towards Portland and Oregon City from Canby, you'll see a sign just before you come through the tunnel. It says 25 miles an hour. And cars usually clock them when I travel from Kenema, where I live, which is another speed zone issue. that's probably going to come up because I'm not too far from Hedges and 99. And what happens is cars typically go through the tunnel about 40 miles an hour. It's almost as if they're playing a video game. And then sometimes they make that hard right on the railway, which becomes about a 35-mile-an-hour zone. And then they zip right past Main Street because they don't even see it. And oftentimes they can't because the semi's right behind them and they're getting really nervous and they're going 40 down a 30. And what I'm asking for is if we can, and by the way, I've begun collecting, ODOT doesn't do a very good job of collecting their signs. I've got a railroad sign, a Highway 43 sign, a temporary parking sign, and I'm going to return them to ODOT at a meeting because their job is really to have speed. They have to have commerce. They have to have trucks moving at certain speeds statewide, and wherever they can not put a speed zone is their job. And it's like insurance companies. You think that they're there to protect you. Their job is to their stockholders is to not pay out policies, and ODOT really isn't into slowing traffic down. They want to have speed, and that's their primary mission, and safety. But what you'll find is an example in Linton, Oregon, on Highway 30. It took a death of 2 children, and now there's a very extensive traffic calming with an island, and it's 30 miles an hour. Don't go faster in Linton. They have the your speed thing. Yeah, on Macadam, you don't speed on Macadam. People don't speed through Milwaukee, especially where the van's parked. On Nato Parkway, people typically don't speed. Those areas demand the respect of the driver, and there's no respect for the city, and it's really a respect thing. People know that they can speed through there, and what I'm asking is if we can go to ODOT, because when I come to the city, it's an ODOT thing, and maybe TAC through a group could write a letter through the concern. It's not a long. It hasn't been happening forever. The reason I know that is 2 of the signs that were knocked down were on wooden 4x4 posts, and they don't use those anymore, and they haven't for a long time. And so I've kept one of those wooden posts that was sheared off at this magnificent angle, so the speed was pretty great. The last wreck on Main Street, and a lot of these wrecks don't get recorded. The cars run off the street, they back their cars up with a broken fender, and they take off and get out of there. And it usually happens in the morning, and at about 5 o'clock, it's people coming from work and leaving from work. And as with the that's on 99. Now on Main Street, the other and we all see the traffic on Main Street as they get closer and closer to 99, and they watch the yellow light. Cars accelerate, and it's become a drag strip there. And they literally go by my building, and I'd like to rent or buy a speed gun and videotape it. But oftentimes they're going 45 miles an hour on Main Street and whipping around the corner, and with these movie sound effects, sounding like screeching tires. And I've seen a little car lose its tire when it somehow hit the tracks, and it crashed in the fence. And it was shocking, and it was shocking for the guy that was driving. He was very embarrassed, I think. But it's also a safety concern. And my thing is, we've lost the signs. We've seen wrecks. A car drove coming towards the tunnel around the corner. The officers estimated at 90 miles an hour. The car rolled over 3 times. It wedged between the old paper mill office and the corner sign on its side. 2 of the people that could walk ran, and 2 that couldn't were stuck, and I'm not sure what happened, but something was going on, because I wouldn't run from a wreck. But these things happen. My request is that if we could have for the city either a camera, a speed camera, and they could get all the tickets they wanted, or at least a sign. I know they're around $20,000 for a year speed and a radar speed, and just slow the traffic down on Main Street. And another recommendation that might not be as expensive is to put maybe a 20-mile-an-hour speed bump like you see on Williams Avenue and in areas around the hospitals in Portland, along railroad. So when they come through the tunnel, they'll see slow, and they'll go 15 miles an hour through there. And if we could get Main Street traffic at 20 miles an hour, from trails from the corner where Trails End is to my thing, it would help us with, number one, it'd help with safety. It looks better. It would create more commerce for Main Street, and it may end up saving a life. Seriously, the last big wreck was last winter. Besides the rollover, a car came through the tunnel, couldn't navigate the corner so fast, and ran into the natural gas meter where Dr. Anderson is. It was spectacular. The flame shot up high. They knocked out the electric wires that were up above it. We almost had to evacuate. And every time there's a wreck, and this is where I get selfish, outside of the safety, every time there's a wreck, which there's lots of them, they basically shut down commerce on Main Street and 99. And my customers, number one, can't leave, and number two, they can't show up. And that would go the same for the hobby store and everybody on Main Street. So I guess I went over 3 minutes, and I kind of rambled, but at least it wasn't on camera. And maybe if I wish I would have had time to put an application in for this. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing, but on hindsight, maybe when there's an opening, I'd love to interview with you all.
It'd be great. And by the way, you are on camera. So.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, I hope it wasn't around me, but do y'all understand the intersection where I'm at?
Yes.
And if you
Absolutely.
travel it,
Yep.
it's just getting worse. And like I said, we've gone. And the former owner of the of where I am at, she doesn't remember it ever being like that. It's gotten worse progressively in the last few years. And hopefully, with automated devices like speed bumps and the radar, maybe a photo radar, it would slow people down on that corner.
Well, I think there are a number of things that we could do in terms of studying that, and John, I assume you would come with recommendations or options.
I've made a note to myself to kind of re-review the video that you're on, Mike, because there's a lot of information that you shared there. So I want to go through that and figure some of those are ODOT facilities, and ODOT is going to have some strong opinions about that. But the Main Street ones are a little new. I'm not on Main Street, obviously, as much as you are, Mike. So I don't. But I don't see high speeds on Main Street. But I don't disagree that they may be happening. So it's a little more challenging, to deal with that. We can post it. What I hear is enforcement, and I know the police department have made a commitment to hire someone in traffic. So that may make a difference in Oregon City. I'm not quite sure how that'll play out, but I definitely want to kind of reopen that dialogue, because we've had that dialogue before with the police department about enforcement. So kind of reopen that dialogue again, and just kind of I think there is a possibility. We don't do cameras. At least we haven't. The city has made that. Well, police department's made that determination. So if they want to look at that in the future, that that might be a good corridor to do it.
Well, I tend to think I drive as a pretty conservative driver, but coming down Lynn Avenue, I still get caught sometimes. Oh, I need to slow it down.
Sure.
They're great reminders. They're passive. They're not offensive, and they're at $20,000. They're fairly inexpensive in relation to manpower labor.
Yeah.
Because they're working 24 hours a day. They never stop.
I'm not sure they're 20,000. The flashing.
Yeah.
That says your
speed and.
Well, has the speed on Main Street changed since it's a two-way street now, rather than a one-way?
Well,
is that part of it?
I'm trying to remember if there's 25-mile-per-hour signs on there. Yeah.
Come off the bridge, take a right. I see it every day when I come down to work.
Yeah. So we have yet to establish, and that's actually I think one of the items on our agenda, establish a policy for 20-mile-an-hour postings. It can happen in neighborhoods, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So but anyway, we'll look at that, Mike. And I guess the other thing is, our third candidate didn't show up tonight. I'm not quite sure why, but and I don't know if I don't think we're actively taking applications, but we'd like to have a full commission. So there's still a chance if you want to apply for that.
Well, if not now, but another time perhaps.
Yeah.
Go to City Hall tomorrow morning, get an application.
Well, and as you
Do
can
it
see,
online.
the perks and benefits, I mean, we have, donuts and cupcakes. and
At every meeting.
Way better than CRC.
We take the summer off.
I'm working on the beer thing, but I don't think we're there yet, so. All right.
Real quick,
Thank
this
you,
is a
Mike.
follow-up question. So the instances where you're seeing traffic speeding from Main Street is turning left off of Main Street, trying to get through an amber light onto
Amber light
99.
race. It's the Amber Light race, and I would
Okay.
welcome anybody to come down and have a cup of coffee and just sit in the window
Yeah.
and watch. And maybe I'm sensitive, and they're maybe not. They're not going 45, but they're not going 20 miles an
Yeah.
hour either.
It's just a radar, a radar speed detector for a situation like that would be difficult because we'd have to post it on the opposing side of the road to try and catch them coming through the intersection. And then you've got so much counter traffic going through there that the device would just go batty constantly.
It's a tough corner.
Yeah, Lynn is a perfect example because we catch you right there on the curve as you're coming downhill, and we get a straight shot at you, and we notify you just as you're starting to come down into that 25-mile-an-hour section. It would be a difficult. We'd have to take a look at the placement if we try to.
I think ODOT is really ODOT definitely does not like to put those up. They
Yeah.
said so, but it would be nice.
Something on 99E as they're coming into the tunnel would be a more prudent choice. I just don't know about the Main Street trying to catch the left-hand turners.
Would it be crazy to think that we might have a 20-mile-an-hour speed bump on Main Street?
I think that would be crazy.
Let's quantify that. He's not a doctor. He did stay at a Holiday Inn.
Keep it fresh.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. And we'll definitely get back to you on that and let you know what.
I'm looking out for you.
So, any discussion on that, or do you want to?
But later.
Later, okay. All right, so let's move on. We have the Willamette Falls Legacy project presentation. How are you doing? Good, thanks.
Hello again, Kelly.
Actually rescheduled. Did you get a copy of that? Is there? You don't have any more, do you, Kelly? We need one for the
Oh,
record.
it's a comment form
Okay.
Okay.
that you,
We can download off the website.
it's the same comment form that we've used at all of our big events as well. So as on the back, there's a place for you to take notes or write questions during the presentation, and then if you have any comments, anything to say on the 3 questions on the front, then I'll take those at the end.
Assuming I turn that on.
Oh,
It's on this end, Kelly.
No, it's on. It is.
It's on the
It's on the
right-hand
left
side?
side. It's on the left. I just pulled one out.
There we go.
It's on both sides.
It is on both sides.
And for the sake of the rest of the committee, please introduce yourself.
Sorry. What's your password?
I couldn't get the screen to come down earlier.
Today is not a good day with AV.
No,
Have Renee so he can.
AV issues.
Push it again.
Push it again.
What's your password?
I'm not a doctor, but
Do you want to read it?
To log in.
Is it mine?
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
Should I just pull it down?
You got to stand up. Whose shoulders you going to stand on?
That's right.
Leave that.
Pretty straightforward.
Push it and hold it.
I mean, minimize.
So,
I could get the projector to come on, but the screen didn't come down, and you can see it's open.
Okay. Well, the audience won't be able to see it, but we'll be able to see it on our screen. So,
are you seeing what I'm seeing right now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Sign in. And there's a toggle.
Should I get started? And then
Yeah,
if the
go ahead.
screen comes
Yeah,
down.
go ahead.
My name's Kelly Moosberger. I'm an assistant planner with the Oregon City Community Development Department. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm here to talk about the Willamette Falls Legacy Project and highlight some of the transportation issues and proposals that we've come up with so far in the process. So I'll give a quick background because I think some of you may not have and get public access to Willamette Falls. And so the best way for us to go about doing that, we determined last year, was to put together a master plan and vision and get a zone change for the property in order to entice a private developer to come in and be a partner on the project. And that process is started in June of this year. And so all summer long, we talked to the public about a vision for the site, what they want to see there in the future. And now we're into the alternatives phase. So the goal of this project is to adopt a zone change. The site's currently zoned industrial. We'd like to change it to some sort of mixed use, similar to what the current downtown zoning is. And then to also adopt a master plan that will guide the future development. And the master plan is meant to be pretty flexible, pretty high level. So the partners of the project, yeah?
On the zoning, that's in process now,
It
correct?
is.
Okay, and when do they guesstimate that that will happen?
The first public hearing for the zone change, for the land use application, will be April 24th, 2014. That'll be before the Planning Commission. We expect to have maybe 2 or 3 hearings before the Planning Commission and then another few before the City Commission to adopt the final plans. We're almost there. And so right now we're in the kind of phase 2, looking at different concepts, and by January, February, the land use application will be turned in. So we're moving along very quickly, and we've been working with ODOT throughout this process, and so you're actually the first group that will see some of our transportation options that we've been discussing with ODOT. So the project partners, like I said before, City of Oregon City, Metro, Clackamas County, State of Oregon, and the bankruptcy trustee, all 5 of these contributed funding to this process. It's a $500,000 project, the Vision Master Plan process that we're doing. And Walker Macy is the lead consultant team, and they've been fantastic.
That'll take a year or 2 for that?
Yeah, that's the process that started in June that will end probably early this summer when the public hearings are done. So here's that timeline that we just talked about. And then the Framework Master Plan is, like I said, meant to be flexible. We want to have enough certainty so that the elected officials and the public kind of knows what we're getting and is comfortable with what we're getting as far as public access to the falls and open space, but flexible enough that in the future, depending on what the economy is like, that a lot of different possibilities could happen as far as private development goes. And so here are just a few images of the site. It does have 52 separate structures, some of which are potentially eligible for the historic register. Lots of industrial kind of equipment that's still there, and then some semi-natural areas. You can see the river shore there is partially natural, partially, a lot of industrial debris from over the years. And so the site does border the upper Willamette River and the lower Willamette River, and the falls, which are the second largest waterfall by volume in North America. If you haven't been out really close up to see them, see me after, and I'll get you on a tour of the site as soon as you want to be. The project, from the beginning, is guided by 4 core values. These are adopted by the Oregon City Commission, and we see them as synergistic. They all work together, and they're all equal, even though we have an order of them here. One is not more important than the other. Those are historic and cultural interpretation, public access to the falls, healthy habitat, and economic redevelopment to replace the 175 jobs that were lost when the plant closed.
What DVD feed?
So first, we'll talk about historic and cultural interpretation a bit. This site is very significant for Native tribes historically, and still is. There's a lamprey harvest that goes on each year that you see in this photo here. This site is basically where Oregon City was founded. People settled here because of the falls and the power that they brought. The original main street went through the site, and before all of the mills were built up, there were buildings like this on the site.
So
in that area.
This is on Main Street, or
This
in
is
the
Main Street.
Blue Heron.
I think this is maybe a little farther north on Main.
All right.
And here's the site prior to the turn of the century. The largest building there on the right is Oregon City Woolen Mill, first built in 1865. The foundation of that building is still there, but the rest of the building was demolished in about 1980. You see there the natural shoreline is visible. That has been built over since and is not fully visible anymore. There are layers and layers of buildings on top of that now. Holly Pulp and Paper Company was here for a long time. Some of their buildings are still on the site. This area floods. This is the 1964 flood. Those structures are part of the PGE dam. PGE now operates on the other side of the river, on the Westland side, and they still do produce a lot of power from the falls. And they own the part of the walkway that's on the Oregon City side, and they've been a great partner in allowing access to that right out here where these buildings were, which is one of the best views of the falls. Mm-hmm. And so these are the four buildings plus the foundation structures that we're focusing most of our energy on to reuse and preserve as historic structures. We've done a lot of research and study of all the buildings on the site, and these seem to be the most viable for reuse. One of those is number 4 paper machine. This is the Holly building, and then that's the Woolen Mill Foundation. Some examples elsewhere in the world of what things like this can look like later, shown here. And then Mill Ruins Park in Minneapolis. We're really looking at this as a precedent project or an example project. This was an old flour mill along the Mississippi River. The ruins of it are part of the park.
That's cool.
That is neat.
So public access to the falls can take many different forms and is on land and in the water. The site outline there is in red, and we're as far as access, vehicular access, we're looking at Main Street and 99 intersection being the main point of access. There you see the intersection, and I know we were just talking about this earlier. So with the zone change and the master plan, we look at how much with the new zoning, how much development could occur on the site, and then based on the square footage and the type of development, what sort of traffic would that bring in the future? And based on that, we actually the amount of congestion that will occur is not as bad as we thought. So that's good news. DKS Associates is doing all of this for us right now and meeting with ODOT. And so we know that because of all the increased traffic that full development would bring, there will be some transportation changes and improvements required to this intersection and potentially other nearby areas. And so what we've been doing with ODOT is looking at the universe of options. Some of those are probably not feasible, maybe way too expensive, maybe not even physically possible. But we've looked at all of them per ODOT's request, and now we're kind of dialing down on a few that seem the most realistic and will solve the problems that we need to solve. And so this kind of shows a few options that we considered. Can you see my pointer here? Mm-hmm. So this Railroad Avenue would be kind of a flyover over the tunnel that would then connect into a potential parking garage right there. Going over the tunnel with 99 was considered, going over the railroad here from 99, and then flying over the railroad up here at 2nd and Tumwater area was considered. All of these kind of seemed infeasible or too expensive, or not the, for various reasons, really not the best bet. And so what we have kind of landed on and we're looking at further is improving or changing the signal here at Main and 99, and then potentially adding a signal at the old Water Avenue in 99, and then the site development would actually rebuild Main Street, on the site itself you'd have a street grid, so Main 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and then also reintegrate Water Avenue into that grid and connect it like this and kind of make new city blocks on the site. And you'll see that diagram later, but with Water Avenue on the site, you'd want a signal there eventually. And then in the short term, you might have folks coming, if they're coming north on 99, instead of turning left here, there's a concern about people stacking up in a left turn lane, or there is no left turn lane, so they'd stack up in that lane to turn left, and that would go into the tunnel, which ODOT's not comfortable with, and frankly, it doesn't sound like a good idea to anybody. So the option, at least at the beginning, would be to kind of leave the intersection as is and not allow left turns and have people go up around here and then come in the site that way, or turn right onto Railroad and loop around into the site.
Would the traffic going into that Main Street extension be two-way traffic, or would it just be one-way traffic coming in?
It would be two-way. So this would be the only way in and out of the site. So the diagrams that I don't think I show the full Main Street in any of these, but in December we'll have those available. But it basically, Main Street goes into the site and then ends with a roundabout about right around here. And so it is a two-way street.
So just to clarify, on 99, when you come up to where the dashed line is, if you're heading, toward Malala, I'm sorry, it can be. So that you would not be able to peel off there in that right lane and go into the,
You
into.
would be able to turn right
Okay.
onto water.
You say you
Underwater.
would?
Right, yeah. I think so. I think they're looking at a lot of different options, so we're not sure yet, but there will be a way to get in and out from water. And with a signal, probably, definitely a right turn, I would think, would be part of it.
Kelly, do you know if that grid that keeps being referred to as Old Oregon City, is that a platted?
It is.
It is?
Yeah, we'll look at that in a second, actually. It's in the presentation.
And who owns that piece of property there at, a little upward, that right there?
That's part of the site.
I know, but there's a building there, it used to be the old post office.
Yep, that's part of the site. It's
And
part of the.
I see a for sale sign there.
It is for sale sign for the site. It's the bankruptcy trustees
Oh,
for sale
okay.
sign.
It's
Yeah.
just not referred to that piece.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Right there, right there.
Oh, that's the big.
Yeah, it used to be the post office.
I didn't know that.
So there's actually the original.
Oh,
This is the
okay.
site.
Old
There's
enough
the
to remember,
original
yeah.
plat.
I remember it.
And so we're looking at bringing back those streets. Water Avenue or Water Street, I guess, could go 1 block into the site or 2 blocks. We're probably going to keep it flexible so that both of them are potential options.
So I know, just back on that previous slide, it looks like you're routing back through 6. It's currently a one-way only heading out to 99E, so you're looking at reconfiguring that?
I think
For the
they're,
cycling that you had?
yeah, so let's go back. So I think they were looking at, yes, going in on 6 that way, but also you could turn right on Railroad and then come through there. So I think it's one or the other probably.
Okay.
And none of this is set in stone, but if you have any comments about it, please let us know so that we can pass that on to DKS. So reinstating the grid, this was Main Street in about the 50s, and that's what Main Street looks like today. It's not, we haven't yet determined whether the new streets on the within the site will actually be dedicated or will just have public easements. Both of those are up for discussion right now, especially without a buyer for the site at the moment. We want to remain flexible with things like that. So you kind of see the grid laid out on the site. There are a series of platforms along the waterfront where you can get good views of the river and the site, and so we'd like to connect those with a waterfront pedestrian and bike trail. And that, so on the site it's one thing, but then we are also thinking about the connections off-site. So what trails can people take and what sidewalks can people take to get to the site? And so we've looked at down here the sidewalk along 99. So I'll talk about that in a second.
Because right now there is no sidewalk.
Well,
right?
not much fun, right? This is part of that future trail. This is actually PGE property, and that's what it could look like in the future to get people out to that final platform and to see that view of the falls. Just an example of a viewing platform from Idaho. So here's that area of 99 that kind of has poor quality of sidewalk, maybe not very wide and comfortable for pedestrians currently. This is replacing this viaduct, replacing and improving it is part of the regional transportation plan, and so we're looking at this as a necessary piece of the puzzle that isn't part of our project, but we'd like this to occur in a parallel process. so that we can get that trail fully connected to the site.
Because you can get up from John Storm up to 10th, and then it pretty much
And
stops
then you have to go
there.
to Main Street.
Yeah, and then it connects back up. I
Right,
guess it does turn
right.
into a sidewalk further down, right?
Right,
So-
and this has been designed, and it's on, the regional transportation plan list of projects, but the funding for it isn't currently available. So we are hoping to kind of galvanize a little bit of energy for this project as well, but it's not part of ours. We're looking at water access as well. A lot of the public people commented on our surveys and at our events. They're excited about the potential for water taxis or ferry service or a little marina. And so that's an existing dock. It's private, but that's something that could maybe be used in the future. So the site floods. This is 96 flood. And that's the flood line, the floodplain in blue that you see there. And so we think it's best to use that area as open space rather than development or new development. And so the master plan, all of the potential options include all of this area as open space, and the buildings that are currently in it could stay, as far as our land use code goes, they don't have to be torn down. But new construction in these areas would be difficult. And so this is the lagoon area, existing buildings. These are not some of the historic buildings, but they still could be reused if there was a developer that had some great ideas for them. And so maybe this is what that could look like with some recreation use in the lagoon area. You could keep some of the buildings and take some away, or you could turn that whole part of the site into a public park. And this was on our survey. If it's still up on our website, so these images were in it, and we kind of asked for people's reactions to this. And so far, this balanced approach with keeping some buildings and having some open space was the most popular choice.
By a landslide or just?
Not by a landslide.
No.
I don't know the exact percentage.
By a mudslide.
By a gnat's eyebrow.
One slide fits.
Do you know the second most popular?
It was this one,
Okay.
all open space. Just a couple examples of park open space near waterfront development. Healthy habitats are third core value. This is an important site for migratory birds and fish, and there are some actually rare plant communities found on the basalt rocks the environment created by the mist from the falls is a great habitat for these plants, and so there's good opportunities to restore those plant communities. There are a lot of invasive species along the shoreline that can be cleaned up. And then the lagoon itself, the water's stagnant right now. It doesn't flow through the site like it used to. And so the quality is poor, and there are invasive species there as well. And so the idea that we are floating by now is to reintroduce, get that water flowing again through the site, from the lagoon down to the lower river, and kind of roughen up the shoreline to create resting areas for migratory fish, for salmon that are swimming through that strong current. It's important to have areas for them to rest, and so making a rougher shoreline that has little eddies will help with that.
And you're thinking of also having water coming through some of the streets and having bridges over that and some...
Potentially, yeah. Reintroducing, so there used to be tail races, through the site in some of those areas that you see with the arrows, and so we could reintroduce those. Part of the site boundary actually goes all the way up to Kanema. It's the old rail spur line, and that's a potential pedestrian and bike trail, and so that's what that looks like now, and then this is what it could look like with habitat restoration on the river. side and then making a nice pathway. The challenge there is when you get to Kenema, you run into the railroad, and so you have to find a way to get over the Union Pacific Railroad and then into Kenema and then connect up to the Kenema Bluff area where there are going to be lots of trails. So that's a conversation that we are going to begin soon with the railroad, because we know that everything involving the railroad is going to take a while. So we're going to engage them about several issues, including this one. Green roof is also an option to add more habitat to the site. Economic redevelopment is our fourth core value.
Just back on the
Sure.
getting over the railroad and 99 into Kenema. Are there what other options other than a ped bike bridge?
Well, I think we're thinking, crossing at grade is probably for them not safety wise not an option for the railroad, and so going over I think is the only one. But we haven't looked at that in detail, so there may be other options out there that we haven't identified yet.
Yep. I've seen those ones that do a couple of loops up and then over.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so the site is directly adjacent to downtown. We've had a lot of success downtown with new businesses lately. And so we'd like to build on that success and integrate the site closely with downtown. That's one of the reasons that reintroduce the street grid and the blocks. The market in Oregon City doesn't currently support a lot of new construction downtown. We think that in this site, the falls will kind of create that market because it'll be such a great amenity and will raise the property value on the site. And we, like I said before, the zoning is meant to be very flexible, and so it would allow possibilities for things like light industry, tech businesses, food-related, arts, education, and of course mixed use. And so here's all of this put together. You have the street grid, the open space, the trails, the historic buildings, and then development blocks. And if you take what's in yellow and overlay it onto, just to get an idea of the amount of space that is, it's a little over 6 acres, which equates to 4.5 full city blocks of downtown Oregon City. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
I've got one, Kelly. Can you go back to that last? I don't see any reference there. Maybe you made it earlier on.
You drive down the street, can't get out.
Off-street parking.
Parking, we, at our December 12th event, we'll have some information about that. We're looking at on-street, of course. Off-street, our economic development and architecture consultants have kind of drawn up some diagrams showing parking on the second floor of building. So you'd have ground floor retail, and then you'd have a level or two of parking, and then maybe offices or something on top of that. Underground parking is difficult here because of the basalt digging down into that. And so, doing that second and third level parking as in a building is one option. And then maybe on blocks 5 and 6, we're looking at putting parking kind of back here against the railroad edge of the site, maybe having a stacked parking structure behind those buildings, in between a building and the bluff.
Have there been any projections made on the open space in terms of how many people that might attract in an annual basis?
Well, preliminarily, we compared this site to some other kind of natural area tourist destinations in the region, like Crown Point Vista House and some of the waterfalls in the gorge.
Ogle Falls.
And so if we got this, Crown Point gets, I think, 1 million visitors a year.
How many?
1 million.
Do they?
And Willamette Falls is more than that. And Multnomah Falls is more than that. And we looked at, I think, 15 or so different tourist destinations that had some similarities to this site. And if we took the average for that, it was about 600,000 annually. So, but it totally depends on how the open space is designed and what's there and what kind of events.
I think Mother
occur.
Nature's designed it for you with a floodplain.
Right.
You're not
So-
going to build anything in that floodplain because of economics. Really, the cost of building, plus the threat of flood, insurance, things of that nature. People just aren't going to be attracted to that. So you're left with that open space there, and really, that's what you want. Because that's the whole purpose, of getting people down there to see those falls. And if you get people down there, the whole commercial aspect of downtown Oregon City is going to change tremendously. But you still got to have a place to park.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Good. No, you're fine.
Well, the parking solutions that our consultant team is looking at, they're hoping to have some parking on the site that will not just serve the site itself, but also supplement downtown's parking. So, on the weekends, you might have a lot of visitors to the site, and so you'll use up all the parking that's on the site. And then in the evening, maybe too. But during the daytime, there may not be as much use of those parking structures, and so downtown Oregon City could benefit from the use of those parking structures too. And then one of the questions on our survey was how far people would be willing to walk from a parking lot or structure to the site. And I think we asked, it has to be on site. I'm not going to walk 2 blocks, 5 blocks, and 10 blocks. And the vast majority said, I'll walk up to 5 blocks to the site. And there were a significant amount of people that said that they would walk up to 10 blocks as well. Only, I think, 6% said that they had to be on site. They had to park on site. So.
Thank you. And, this committee is going to become more and more involved in this project as it develops. So we're looking forward to that. So.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Okay. Question.
We're going to do it.
We want to. I just want to look at it.
Yeah, Chair Meyer.
Yes.
Just so you all know and prepare yourself for this, Sedemir, which was our third candidate, has arrived. We've talked to the mayor, and he's authorized the interview to proceed, even though he won't be here. So our thought is when we're done with our agenda, we'll want to close the meeting and reopen it to an interview, a third interview. So.
Okay.
Well, I'll keep that in mind as I go through my items.
Thank
and
you.
do it at super speed,
Yeah.
if you'll allow that to happen.
We didn't bring. No one brought their sleeping bags, so that would be that would be appreciated. Okay, let's move then to item 6B, library building project.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you
How
so
are
much for having me. For the people that I don't know, there's a couple of you. I'm Maureen Cole, the library director. And what we're trying to do is go to each of the... Oh, thank you. Wow, I feel so official. Yeah.
Look at that.
Thank you, Vanna.
Did she have a cupcake?
Yeah, she can. Yum. Dinner, right? We're trying to visit with each of the advisory boards that our project might have an interaction with, an impact on. So I wanted to come to you tonight and just let you know where we are on our project, and then kind of talk a little bit about the parking transportation angles of what's going on. So I don't know.
Can I hold it?
Oh, could you? That'd be great.
You like Vanna here?
Vanna Lewis.
This is great. So, so we hired a Portland firm that has a lot of library experience to create 3 images for us of what a building could look like on the Carnegie Park site. And this is just one of them. This is the 2-story image that all of them would be built behind the existing building. And the City Commission really, really, really liked that one, and that's my favorite one too, because it leaves more park space, and it has some really nice architectural features that match the existing building but you still know the existing building is the historical building. So we, on June 19th, the City Commission designated Carnegie Park as the site of future library expansion. So what we've been doing since then is getting some testing done, some studies done to test our assumptions about cost and what would be involved. So we had a parking study done, a tree study done, and a geotech done to see what we were going to be digging into in the back. And we just came in front of the City Commission last week at a work session just to update them. And basically no huge red flags were waived. One reason that huge red flag on parking was not waived was because since we had the designation done, we purchased a small parking lot that exists on the corner of 7th and Jefferson, and it's really tucked away. I didn't even know it was there. I thought it belonged to the buildings next door, but it doesn't. It's a separate lot. And so we've purchased that lot, and we'll make it available for staff and for patrons. But what that does, especially if we can pull all of our staff off the street, is make the street parking a lot more available to patrons. So, I mean, you know, we are at the point now where we're working on the RFP for the architect, and we hope to get that out before Thanksgiving, and then interview for an architect after the first of the year. But you know, all that stuff will get worked on in detail much later. But I wanted to let you know what we're doing and to kind of make sure that you're in on the loop, give you an opportunity to ask any questions, make sure you knew you could contact me at any point in time, that we'll be back in front of you, and that, you know, we take the parking thing in this area very, very seriously because, as Kelly was saying, you know, we realize that people that work downtown now park in that neighborhood and leave their car all day, so that parking is not just a problem for just one area of town. It's like for all over, so we have to kind of think of it globally. And I would like to ask you a question, but it might put you on the spot.
Oh, no, don't do that.
That's why he makes the. That's why he makes the big bucks.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. So, are you guys going to put in a flashing crosswalk at 7th and John Adams?
Yes, but you'll have to sit through the rest of our agenda because it's later in our agenda.
Right. Just yes is all I wanted to hear.
6J is on the agenda.
Yeah.
Maybe some cupcakes
Okay.
left over that you can.
Yeah. So I think that will help as well because a lot of the parking that was identified in the parking study is across 7th Street. There's quite a lot of parking around.
Does that mean you have money to help us fund that crosswalk?
There you go.
Partnerships?
Oh, boy. Boy, that's a
Careful
big-
when you ask
Wait a
questions.
minute. Yeah. Who are we putting on the spot here? This was my turn. Let's talk later. But we have not done a survey to see how far people would walk to the library, but in our experience, people who say they will walk up to 10 blocks.
William will walk more than that even.
Yeah. I think most people that go to the library would like to walk as little as possible. And they'll walk if it's reasonable. But, you know, a lot of people that we see are dragging bags of books, not books of bags, but bags of books.
And kids.
And kids. That's just it. So we really take this seriously, that we want to make as much parking available as possible in a convenient way. And, you know, we don't have the design of the building done, But since the building is going to be behind the library and back up to Jefferson Street, I'm hoping that we can go ahead and do an entrance on Jefferson Street and make some of those parking spaces right there dedicated to handicap or express or something like that that makes sense. So we're trying to think really globally about that at this point in time, and that's all I really have for you tonight. I just wanted to.
I have a question about
Sure.
Tri-Mount and how close it comes to the library.
Right now, it's only not even 2 full blocks away.
Okay.
It's on the other side of the Pioneer Center.
Okay.
It's on
Yeah.
5th.
Yeah,
Trying it on 5th and 9th.
yeah. So it's really close.
Great.
Yeah, which is one reason why that we felt good about that location, because that's critically important. So.
And your office is going to be located on the second floor.
I have the whole second floor. That's me. That's me, baby. You know. No, I will probably be down in the basement or something. You know, we don't mind staffing 2 levels because that's what we do now. Staffing 3 levels is kind of really more staff than I can give up if we want to not raise taxes, which that's the plan. So, you know, maybe we'll turn, you know, the whole flow of all this is really up in the air, but I'm kind of thinking that that should be storage, utility stuff, staff desks, lunchroom, you know, and that we would not have anything down there. And that's, if I could have a desk down there, I would have more than I have now, and I would be so happy. Yeah.
I think your greatest problem is 7th Street and that volume and speed of traffic that goes up and down there.
That's crazy, especially coming down that hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of course we're always back and forth to Singer Hill. A lot of people are, and that is a very dangerous corner. So I'm really glad it's on your agenda tonight. Too bad I won't catch it. You have to fill me in.
You don't
later.
want to stick around, okay.
You have to fill me in later.
All right.
Other questions? Great, thank
Thank
you
you.
so very
Appreciate
much.
it.
After you mention you have some money, we'll come personally and give
There
you an
you
update
go.
on that.
I don't think I remember saying that.
All right. Well, we have an information on TAC update.
Right, so really, a bunch of these items, I could move forward if you just kind of give me, can he just give me authorization to go through each one of them pretty quickly? Yeah, they're all information, so apologize for the October meeting cancellation. In replacement of that, we kind of added some key information that we thought you needed to know, so hopefully you all received that in email form and were able to do with it as you may, but one of the challenges when Kathy's away from the office, certain things don't happen, and this agenda was one of them. So I'll move on to item 6D, if that's okay, Blaine.
Yes. Pardon me, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Just one quick question on item 6 there, the Newell Canyon Trail opportunities. Can our committee members go to that? It's kind of open-ended there. It'd be November 21st or December 5th.
Just a second here. 6, say that again? Which?
Item number 6 on the TAC update.
Newell Canyon Trail
Yeah.
opportunities.
Right. Looks like there's going to be some meetings there.
That's further on the agenda. We have not yet, and
Okay.
we need to kind of talk through and confirm if we're going to make the December meeting. So that's the next item. Actually, 6D on our agenda is this multi-use trail opportunities update, and we had last talked about trying to attend a future meeting with the PRAC, at least having a representative from the TAC go, and I think we talked about Blaine being that representative, and him and I were going to do that. We've since been able to get on the December 5th agenda if that works for you, Blaine. And their meetings are at 7. So right now we're on the agenda. It's just I need to confirm that if that's something you can attend, that's something I could attend, and we can together do that.
We'll
I
make
guess
it happen.
the other question that I have is, you know, if we could get some understanding of what it is that we, you know, is there graphics that we should be presenting, or do you have some things in mind? I know we talked about having someone from the Trail Alliance attend that meeting as well, so maybe you already have something put together, and so I guess I'm not quite sure the level of effort on staff's part you had in mind for just kind of being prepared for that meeting. So we could talk
about
offline.
that. Yeah, we could talk offline. And, you know, basically, we just want people at the table that are stakeholders. So I think you've named off most of them. The natural resource Committee might be another stakeholder that we would want at the table. Most of that land is owned by Metro, as you know, so it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have, Janet Bebb or Hughes, not Hughes, anyway, Janet come and be part of that meeting as well.
You're not talking the 5th, though. You're talking about, that's the conversation you want to have with them about a future work session.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we should touch base soon, Blaine, on kind of what, again, you want to have for that meeting on the 5th.
Okay.
Okay.
And this will be at the
It'll be here.
okay, but for the PrAC, right?
Yes. It'll be
Okay.
Parks and Rec Advisory
Right.
Committee meeting.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about that.
Okay. Item 6E is the Dutch Brothers at 10th and Main, really just an update. We've hired Kittleson Associates to do, kind of complete the study, if you will, that was started back in 2009. We've since asked them to go out there and do detailed traffic counts, which they've completed. We've yet to meet on that, but we're planning to this week. They've got some preliminary alternatives that were I don't even want to call them alternatives, just preliminary sketches of ideas that we have yet to kind of internally talk through. And we have yet to meet with property owners as well, so we're really trying to collect information on the reality of that situation. But we're going to keep moving forward with that, and when we have a little more kind of understanding of that issue, we'll bring that back before you. The no right turn on red for Highway 213 is informational. There's some emails there. It's basically ODOT's been making some changes. Some of the changes that we talked about early on in this meeting when we were kind of experiencing some problems at Redland Road and Highway 213. They've made several adjustments. John, you live out there. You probably travel that more than any. Mostly signage, some striping changes. So anyway, it's good to know we're getting feedback from someone fresh maybe at the state that's taken a fresh look at it and kind of agreed that there are some need for some adjustments, even though they weren't included in the original project. So,
well, are they addressing that issue at Highway 213 and what is it, Prairie Schooner Way?
You mean
the question was to them is if they could put additional no right turn signs there, and their response was ridiculous. It was a typical ODOT response, and a non-response, really, and no action.
So they got enough
Now, I want to be on record as saying that it was a ridiculous response from ODOT for a dangerous situation.
Okay.
So that's where I am.
Additional right turn lanes at Prairie Schooner Way. How about and Clackamas River Drive?
Just signs.
No, signage there.
Signage. They've only got a sign up where the traffic light is.
Well, and ODOT's response was that people typically look up, and so the sign's right there, and so they believe that is sufficient. I do agree with the idea of enforcement there. I think that it just, every time I go there, people are
There's 3 or 4 cars at a time.
just keep going and don't pay attention to that.
They may have some action when a serious accident happens. It will happen.
Eventually, it will. People don't judge the speed of the cars, coming down, traveling on. Some are, I think it's 55 through there.
Yeah.
Some are doing 65.
And they're inconsistent
70.
because just down the highway where Redland Road comes in, you got a free right turn. And it's the same situation going on to Highway 213. So
And frankly,
I don't know where they're coming from, but I don't think anybody else does either.
Mm-hmm.
I might interject
I'm
here.
going to have to refresh my memory on the ODOT response because I haven't seen it. But
I'll talk to you after the meeting, John.
Okay.
I might want to interject here the Pedestrian Bikeway Advisory Committee that with Clackamas County, they're also talking about this intersection, and particularly just past where we're talking about on Prairie Schooner, where you feed onto I-205 going north. And there is actually a cutaway in the sidewalk to allow bikes and pedestrians to cross there, but you would be taking your life in your own hands because it's down a bit. So they're working on some ideas and recommendations on pulling that cutaway up and then adding some aggressive striping in there and trying to slow traffic down. My personal feeling, I cycle, but I would find an alternative route, but some people are pretty.
This is to cross there
to cross the on-ramp.
205.
Yeah, to get over to the bike ped bridge.
In their little box.
What's this here? Meet.
So just wanted to bring that to your attention, and that's being looked at from a different angle or a different level of organization. Okay, any other comments before we move on to 6G?
So 6G, just so you know, the City Commission is, this is going to be before the City Commission on the meeting on tomorrow, on the 20th. And it's kind of a new item. We haven't spoken much about it. It is a project that is identified, or it's a kind of a collection of projects that's identified in the city's transportation system plan. So we want to take a closer look at it through a corridor study at the. I have it on PDF form, but there's a map. Is it loaded up there? Would you mind trying to see if you can find it on that laptop?
Are you talking about completing the sidewalks from Warner Milne down?
Right, so it's more than sidewalks, and if I get this up on the screen, I'll just talk through it. This is, we're calling it the Lynn Avenue, Leland Road, Myers Road Corridor Plan, and it's comprised of a variety of TSP projects, mostly PED related and bike related. So Lynn Avenue, we've heard a lot of feedback from the community about safer pedestrian routes, really from where it changes from 5th on up the hill. So we're trying to figure out if there's a implementation plan that we can put into practice. And I'm not guaranteeing that we'll be building that right away, because most of those projects were in our transportation system plan were also considered not likely to be funded. But we think if we do the corridor study, we look at other pieces. I mean, there's several sections of that segment that we want to look at, both traffic-wise and utility-wise. For instance, Myers Road, most of the homes that front Myers Road are on septic systems. So at some point in time, before we do any road improvements, we know we're going to have to deal with a sewer collection system design. Thanks, Martin. So this is the alignment, and it's a long alignment. If you're familiar with this boulevard, which just about anybody in Oregon City is familiar, because it's really the parallel route to Malala Avenue. So if you travel, we've been talking a fair amount about, with the library and Fifth Avenue. If you go up Fifth Avenue as it starts moving up towards Lynn, it gets real narrow there. There's not really a corridor that bicyclists or pedestrians feel real safe on. Unfortunately, it's steep on either side of the road, so trying to find a solution there is kind of what this study would be about. And then looking at the area in front of Gardner Middle School, there's some side roads there, and maybe somehow using the parkway that we own to, instead of having it right on Lynn, there may be some shared use trail options that we might want to identify through this corridor project. And more than identify, have a concept level design and concept level estimates for. And then when we get to the intersection of Warner Milne and Warner Parrott, as you know, I think you all know that there's a roundabout proposed for that location in the TSP. It's actually been in the plan before this current TSP update. So looking at the reality of what a roundabout could do to that intersection in terms of moving traffic, but also in terms of property impacts, and what's the right size for the roundabout, how you tie that into the side streets, actually how all the side streets tie into this section, especially those that are constrained and maybe problematic. So, and then just, again, continuing to move south towards Myers Road. When we did the pavement management utility fee project, if you remember, we paved Leland Road a couple years ago. We added some curb and we added some walking areas, but we didn't add sidewalks. So, one of the things we heard is what you did is great, but we would have liked more sidewalk connectivity up there. So, again, trying to complete those pedestrian ways and bikeways. And then I already mentioned Myers. Myers is an old county road section with no shoulders. And really probably some right-of-way limitations there that we'd want to kind of identify and start moving towards a list of projects, needs that we could either pursue grant funding for or define clearly for any kind of redevelopment that might happen along that corridor. So I can't remember the exact dollar amount. I've got it here, but it's about an $80,000 study. And we've got a detailed scope of work, $83,000 study. So that's going before the City Commission tomorrow night, and I think it's a pretty good project. We haven't done a corridor study since 7th Street, I don't believe. So we'll want to look at this in real good detail and have some good concepts to implement in the future. So any questions on that before I move on?
How soon can you get it done?
Well, the schedule suggests we would get it done by, I think we pushed it out because we hadn't got it before the City Commission, but I think we're looking at the end of July.
And then that's, I think
2014.
Yeah, and then the actual completion of that would be contingent on funding and probably be more like 2018 or 20 or something.
I'll make no promises there. I think
You're smart.
I think that it's going to happen in pieces, and pick the low-hanging fruit that we can. But I think all of those areas this community supports these kind of solutions for. So I'm not.
It is a major corridor. I mean, as an alternative to Malala. So, yeah, okay. All right. Any questions on that? Going to 6H, construction projects update.
So, not a lot. Main Street alleys, we're still pursuing design work on that. We've got an underground storage tank that we found on one of the alleys that's was for heating oil. So we're kind of dealing with those issues, which tend to slow things down. But we think the design effort should proceed in parallel with maybe the tank remediation. Martin, might, even though Maureen left the room, you want to talk about the 7th Street and John Adams Pit Crossing?
Yeah, as you guys recall, we acquired the equipment last fiscal year with some of our year-end dollars that we had. And we're currently in negotiations with the county, and the county is going to help us with coming up with a standard design element so that we've got a mock-up that we can utilize for future implementations at other intersections. We're looking at this as our test pilot, and there's some other logistical issues which we're trying to address, one of them being electrical to both sides of the road to get the signals communicating with one another. But we're looking at probably another 30 days, and we should have something out in terms of preliminary design from our design partners over at Clackamas County.
All right.
Okay. McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project, bids were open on that earlier this week? Last week.
Thursday.
Bids came in, the low bid was for that project was $2,648,727.65. I was just asking Kathy, the engineer's estimate's not shown here, but we thought the thought was it was within
3% of that.
Within 3% of that. So pretty tight bids. The range really there was 8 bids. 7 of them were between 2.6 million and 2.9. The 8th bid was quite a lot more at a little more than 3.8 million. So ODOT has yet to make the award. If you remember, this is not a city contract; it's an ODOT contract. So ODOT will make the award on that, and we would. There's 2 travel lanes, vehicle travel lanes, and now 2 bicycle lanes, and you can park on one side of the street, not both sides of the street. So Kathy put together a great letter and map that to the neighborhood, just to kind of remind them about the no parking rule. It's signed properly, so if you see vehicles parked in the bike lane along Claremont, feel free to call the police department and tell them they need to enforce their no parking rule.
Actually, there are cars parking there, and they asked us to send a letter out, just as a reminder, before they start ticketing people.
After or before your letter?
No, people are still parking there. So they asked us to send a letter out.
Okay.
Who asked you, the police department?
Code enforcement,
Oh.
I guess, who works for the police, they're under the police department.
Yeah.
And I think that they're trying to be polite, but they're saying that really the vehicles are sticking out into the bike lane.
Or
No, they're on the bike lane, and people are having to travel.
Well, now with the bike lane and no parking, it's really a 5 or 6 foot bike lane. So if you got a vehicle there and you park there, you're encroaching into the travel lane. So
Yeah.
there shouldn't be anybody parking there. So.
And I don't think that, I think that they wanted us to send a letter before they started ticketing people.
To the residents.
To the residents.
To the residents adjacent to the no, where it's now no parking. So that's what we did.
Yep.
Is there any kind of pavement signage, no parking anywhere along there?
Yeah, it's all signed. It's clear. It's our softer, more customer-friendly approach to something before we just start writing tickets or
It
telling
used to be no
people
parking
therefore
during the
have
day, and now it's no parking 24/7. So
It's going to be hard for them to get used to, I think.
There's another little project here that's listed. It's down the street here on Center Street in front of the telephone company. There's been a closed section of sidewalk there, and we're working on repairs to that. Should be done soon. Probably with this good weather, it'll be done soon. So any other questions on construction projects?
All right. 6I. Well, I think this is,
My last meeting.
yes. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, I've enjoyed, the years that I've been on this committee. It's grown a lot. I remember, when I first joined the committee, we were in the trailers up which is now the police station. We used to meet in a real small room,
Mhm.
but it's been enjoyable, and it's been growing, and it's great.
Yeah.
Enjoyed working with everybody.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate all you've done.
So you're headed for Hawaii, is that the idea?
No, I'm headed to the Mexican Riviera on Saturday.
Well, you got paid pretty good.
Yeah, I did. Oh,
Wait a minute, we might have one more meeting in December.
14 years on the committee.
14.
Unreal.
14.
It's been fun. It really has.
Yeah,
We
We've done
appreciate
a
it.
lot,
that's significant. Yeah,
It's enjoyed
amazing.
it.
Yeah, thank you.
So now I get to watch you on TV.
That's right.
It's been great having you. I'm a little worried as the only woman on the board that you're the only voice of reason.
That's
Candy will have to speak.
She makes us look good.
It's all on your shoulders, Captain.
But thank you for the treats and the flowers.
Thank you.
Okay, we have election of the chair and vice chair, or nominations rather. And so, not sure of the protocol, but I would imagine that we open it for nominations, and then we will then, after the nominations are closed, then we will have the election. Does that sound reasonable?
I'm gonna defer to Kathy. I haven't read the bylaws before the meeting, so I think that's right. But I just want to make sure, and
I'm going to defer to Bob LaSalle. I think he knows the rules.
That's correct. That's the way it should be done.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
And I would like to open the nominations. I would like to nominate Steve Johnson for chair.
I second.
Any discussion?
Except
Move
if they change the street
nominations.
light down my street.
I'll move nominations closed for president.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I second it.
Okay. All in favor for Steve as the chairman? Say yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Steve, for
Okay,
your willingness to serve.
sure.
Okay. And now we want to open nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Bob LaSalle.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
We may
I'm
close,
sorry.
close
Yep,
nominations.
Close out, yes. So someone want a motion to close
Oh, I
nominations?
move that we close the nominations.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, so closed. Okay, now, all in favor of Bob LaSalle?
Yes.
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 Okay, any opposed? Thank you, Bob, for your willingness to serve.
You bet.
Okay, so nominations have been made and closed, and we have two candidates. So would someone like to open the election?
I move that we open the election for the new officers for 2014.
All right, second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. And those in favor of the slate of officers, president, or chair, and vice chair, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, any opposed? Okay, so elections are closed, and that's that. So, thank you, both of you.
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I'm the newbie on the board. But I want to thank Blaine for his,
Bob, can you speak into the microphone?
for his chairmanship on the committee. It's been enjoyable, and we've moved forward, and he's run the meetings efficiently and with congeniality towards the citizens of Oregon City, which is greatly appreciated, I'm sure. So, thank you, Blaine.
You're welcome. Glad to do it. Okay, so now we're moving on to item 6K. 2014 TAC meeting schedule.
Information. Your schedule.
All right. So nothing there, so 6L, December meeting. I suppose the question is whether or not we will have a December meeting. So,
Right, and I mean, we missed that October meeting. It's not that we have to have that. I will be hopefully attending the PrAC meeting. We'll have an update for that. Maybe we can take William's advice and narrow our agenda a little bit. But I still think it would be good to meet in December. If it's not. It's a busy time of year, I get that, but I mean, I think this is a good group, and if there's anything we want to talk about for next year, we could queue that up.
maybe we could make it a little bit of a,
It might make sense to have
Bring some
Blaine,
goodies
you
and-
and Steve to talk about what, and Bob, I don't know, just, what kind of goals are we shooting for next year?
Mhm.
That could be a topic. But-
That's a good idea.
So what date would that be? We would stick with the third,
December 17th.
December 17th.
Yeah, but then Betty will
Wait a
still be
minute,
on the
how come it
committee.
says December 16th?
That's the subsequent year.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. Thank you.
So is there any discussion on this, John?
Just a quick question. With regard to the city commission goals, are there some details there that might point us to priorities for this group next year?
There's I forget what they call them, but under each one of those, there's a subset of.
Right, so could that be attached to the agenda that goes out, so we'll have a chance to look at that prior to coming to the meeting?
Sure.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea, John.
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea that the planning department and library director came before us tonight and updated us. I think it's really crucial that we hear from each other and keep lines of communication open. I really do. It's not only that, but it's just a matter of respect for what we do and for what they do. And, you know, that healthy exchange is always good for the city, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
John, is this this is the document you're thinking of? This.
Probably, I don't have it in front of me, so.
Yeah. It's their 2013-2015 goals and priorities, and
Yes.
there is some more specific information than what's on the
Okay,
wall.
good.
We'll attach that.
Okay, so do we have a motion to have the meeting in December?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I so move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay,
Go ahead.
We've got a
You're the boss.
we've got a co-second.
I don't think. Well, I don't know if we have to have a motion, but that's great.
So, all in favor of having a meeting?
Aye.
Good. None opposed? Carries. So we will meet on the 17th
Okay.
here.
I'll bring the snickerdoodles.
All right. I'll bring the wassail.
So, Blaine, before
People need to go.
we close, there was one item that I wanted to add to the agenda, and
Yes.
I'll go through it pretty quickly too. Just right now, you know, Metro has a regional transportation plan. Right now, we're in an update of that. They've asked us to update that. It's what they consider a small update, but it's pretty big, given the fact that we've completed our transportation system plan. So by updating it, it's a new list of projects. So the work that we're doing internally is basically taking the projects that we've listed in our transportation system plan. We might group those. For instance, the corridor project that we just talked about, we grouped those together and said, you know, here's the projects, here's what we think should be included as a project estimate for the regional transportation plan. And we're submitting that along with all the other cities and the Clackamas County. Collectively, we submit that. And it's a bit of a shell game. This regional funding, it's a 20-year plan, so they're looking at 20 years worth of funding. And I think we've got, for Oregon City, the last time we had an allocation of around $215 million over the planning horizon that we would essentially plan for. And so we're going through that same level of effort, trying to prioritize those into 4 different time frames across the 20-year planning horizon. And there's not a lot of public involvement because most of these projects are included in the transportation system plan already. It's really just kind of packaging them in a way that is consistent with what's in the regional transportation plan. So the timeline for this is huge. The whole reason for the regional transportation plan is because Metro is required to, under the federal government, through or federal guidelines for air quality. So it's really an air quality exercise. It says, you know, because of this plan, communities are moving towards a improved air quality by having these projects that theoretically either improve, you know, other modes of travel or make efficiencies for traffic. And you know, even with population growth, the idea is there's still some gain. There's either gain in betterment of air quality, or there's given the population growth and where we could be if we stayed on our current path, this new path projects that the air quality would be even better with these projects and with these capital improvements. The other thing about the regional transportation plan is the region looks at that. So when there's you know, when we pursue grant applications, they, I mean, one of the first thresholds is your project on the regional transportation plan. So, pretty big effort, somewhat of an important document for the region, but I do feel like a lot of it's theoretical. These project estimates are concept level, so they're you know, we've increased them even from what we have shown in the transportation system plan because, you know, timing, phasing, just getting these grants. You know, there's a lot to these projects. So anyway, we're moving through that. I think in the end there will be a list that we'll be able to share with you. But right now it's in draft form, and we're just trying to meet the deadlines because I think the county the county hosts a C4 meeting, which is Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, and in the metro region, they meet and they are going to actually adopt that on December 6th. So they'll adopt our recommendation. So it's moving really quickly. It's actually a fair amount of staff effort for a pretty short amount of time. So I just wanted to share that so that you would know that was happening. If you got any questions about that, I can answer those.
And to add a layer of complexity, the Clackamas County pedestrian bikeway advisory committee is working on the active transportation plan, which is going to dovetail with the regional transportation plan. And that there was some pushback by some of the mayors who are wanting to change language in the active transportation plan because they felt like, that they're going to be asked to implement these corridors and routes and so forth, and not really have any say over it. So I think that they've fixed those from what I understand. But I hope by the next meeting in December, I'm working on diagramming. There are just numerous organizations, including Metro, County, City, and Oregon City is on all of those different plans, and it's just totally confusing to me. So I'm starting to diagram out what this one is. So I'll hopefully have that, and it'll be helpful to everyone to figure out all the layers.
The good news about that, Blaine, though, is that because our transportation system plan was just recently completed, the active transportation plan, while they're adopting it and they're refining that document, most of the policies and thoughts behind, getting people to use alternate modes of transportation, which is what the active transportation plan is all about, are, those considerations were made in our TSP. So there's not much in the active transportation plan that's much different than, or any different than what we have in our
That's
TSP.
good to know. Oh, boy. Okay. So, anything else for the good of the order?
No, young lady, you can take that home if you want.
Okay,
To
Steve?
John. How's that cutting the ditches that are into streets?
Paul wants to say something.
Okay, and this is related to what item? Okay. Item 8?
Yes.
You mean 6C? October TAC update? No.
Yes.
Okay. Sure. And in terms of protocol, is there anything that you need to fill out to turn into them for record?
Yeah, he's supposed to fill out a comment form.
Okay. So we still have to go through our recommendations. So yeah. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Edgar, I'm the land use chair of the Kenema Neighborhood Association, and we have very narrow streets, roads through there. They're 60-foot wide right-of-ways, 20 to 25 feet of it's asphalt, undulating, no sidewalks. Therefore, we have real problems, not only with the right-of-way, in this case, unmaintained right-of-way. So we have, right next to my house, there's a Marshall Street. Coffee Creek runs part of the way through it, down the hill, going down. But it's a right-of-way, unimproved. Who takes care of it? It's city property, city right-of-way. We have all of this all over Kenema. And so a lot of it's at Blackberries, a lot of it obstructs views so that people can't see. We degrade safety in a dramatic manner. So those are issues, and we would like sometime for somebody to look and talk to us about what we should expect, what we could do, what the city should do. We have this city-owned property, and it's dedicated street right away, and it looks like hell. And it's
what street is that?
The whole Kenema.
Oh, you're talking about the whole area. Okay.
The whole
Yep.
all of Kenema.
The residents too have a problem?
Yeah. This is not. I was fortunate to get Clackamas County, Greater Watershed Council to come out, and some of the people to spray Japanese knotweed and a bunch of other things, which recently in some isolated areas trying to beat it down, but a lot of it's literally on public land. Then within this same context, we have these very narrow streets, and the state has code that was passed some years back that allows us to reduce the speed limits by 5 miles an hour and post it. We have some infill, people are in there speeding right close to my house. There's a hump on Fifth Avenue where kids can try to see if they can clear all four wheels of their car from the pavement as they go over the hill down through there. I have a herd of deer running around through my yard and through the neighborhood. And these kids are coming through there at 30 and 40 miles an hour and on 20 feet of asphalt. And we think it's appropriate. We have this low number of traffic, so our traffic count adapts perfectly to the state specifications for if the area should be or could be have a reduced speed zone put into it. So we have virtually, I don't know of one thing about Kenema that is against what the state code says should exist. And we would like to see you guys to look at it, to work with Public Works and work with the Kenema Neighborhood Association to come to some understanding. Is this appropriate to make this request? And is it appropriate for not only public safety, but for bicyclists and everyone else that's using this area? And we think that it would be something very, very positive, and would like very much to see you guys consider it. Also, historically, we have a problem too where people coming from Canby, coming into Oregon City, are going at 55 miles an hour through the Kenema Bowl Flats. They come across the deal and drop down into Kenema. Sometimes they let off on the gas when they get into the city, but when I just came from the Chiefs Advisory Committee meeting, and I'm a member of, and talking with Chief Ban, he could go out there and write tickets all day long. And he just goes out there and does some some deals. But they go speeding through Kenema, and it's a historic commercial district, and we have kids that live on the riverside of Highway 99, and they catch the bus on the other side. So they're trying to get back and forth across through there, and there's really no designated crosswalk. And we're hoping that sometime that this committee might take a look at that and say, okay, help us come up with some ideas, because again, I thank you, Bob, for some of your comments about ODOT, but pushing a rock uphill requires a lot of people. And when we get into something like trying to talk to ODOT about doing something like making this section of road 35 miles an hour or something like that, or 30 like we have downtown, unless we have a huge collective group of people saying, please, ODOT, understand this is good public safety considerations, what we should be doing, good public policy, it's going to be hard to make it happen. So this is one of the reasons why we come to you and say, okay, please join with us, you assess it, you try to think it through and see if that isn't something that you would like.
Okay.
On one last non-Kenema issue, and this is on the South End Road concept plan. And this is where if we have a full build out at 2,500 homes on South End Road area, and we know that you can't widen South End Road because it's weight restricted in an active slide zone going up the hill by Kenema going up. When you have these, you have 10,000 cars going through Warner Parrott South End Road intersection. You add another 25,000 cars, taking the ITE manual times 10 times times 2,500 new residents. That gives you 35,000 vehicle trips through that intersection on a day. And of those those trips going that way, I asked, and I would like to get a understanding from our consultants where they say these cars are going to go. These do the majority of them, as we have considered in the past, they go into Portland or leave here because we don't have jobs. And if they move here, they're moving from someplace where they had a job, and it sure wasn't in Oregon City in most cases. And so you're going to find a lot of those people trying to go down South End Road just by the basic nature of the shortest way, the way the crow flies. They're going to go down, hit Second and Tumwater. And then they're going to try to figure out how to get through there. Well, granted, our TSP has not passed or been approved as yet. But the current TSP says, under level of service considerations, LOS, this intersection would be at LOS-F for a significant number of hours per day, and therefore any type of approval of this type of concept plan that allows that to happen is in violation of the TSP that's in effect today. And therefore, it should be something, in my estimation, that this committee should take a serious look at. When I was working TSPs in other communities and for the county, we did origination and destination studies and asked for all of the consultants' workups on this. I would recommend that this committee get those consultant workups on how they look at all of these trips and where they're going to go, and make sure that you guys understand, because if this happens, who's going to pay for the impacts, and how do we actually, in the end, make those decisions? Anyway, thank you very much for allowing me to talk to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. We will look into that for sure.
He brings up a real good point.
Okay. Agenda items, we've talked about that for December, so unless there are any other questions or issues, we want to bring this meeting to a close and then reopen the interview process. Is that your understanding? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.